And as it stands now, we have 33%, only 33% of the country supports that. Supports that.
It's a very unpopular ruling.
This is a story from Dayton.
Because it's precedent by now. It's been precedent for 50 years, and it was overturned. And people have gotten used to it. They didn't think it would actually happen, right?
And be prepared for this, because you're going to hear a lot of this. And people say that this abortion ruling is going to cost women's lives. It's not going to cost women's lives because they're going to be getting dangerous abortions. More often than not, that's going to be to the extent that people are going to have illicit abortions in states that ban them, it is going to be a function of medicine. They're going to get pills that are going to provide their abortion in many instances.
And those pills are very, very safe, although there could be some complications, and this would naturally chill them from going to a provider to seek.
Yeah, the Plan B pills are pretty safe. Of course, they only work like in the earlier terms. The big problem is when like late-term abortions in the back alleys with coat hangers and stuff. The black market doctors, the uncertified doctors, or the doctors that were uncertified, perhaps. There are all sorts of health issues that go along with that. Some women do die from that. Some. It's not a very common thing, but yeah, that's a very unsanitary, very dangerous, and of course, Plan B is what they're going to come after next, right? Because they're basically abortion pills. So they're going to probably ban it as much as they can. We'll see what the Supreme Court says about the right to contraception. So they're going to try to outlaw contraception as much as they can. And if women aren't able to get even black market doctors to perform abortions, they will try to perform abortions on themselves, and that's self-harm. And we'll get into that.
Without a doubt. But in many respects, the level of complications in these instances generally is, along the lines of taking of Tylenol. But here is an example of what you're going to see. Go to the top of this. The parking lot of a Dayton Women's Medical Center in Kettering was busier than usual Monday as patients inside tried to understand their options now that abortions are banned in Ohio after the detection of a fetal heartbeat about 6 weeks into pregnancy. Let's be clear.
6 weeks.
This is not a fetal heartbeat. It is a auditory representation of electrical impulses that are going to. You can hear with a stethoscope.
So
your heartbeat. You cannot hear with a stethoscope.
Okay, so a fetal heartbeat isn't even a heartbeat. Okay, well that kind of explains, because 6 weeks, your heart isn't even formed yet. That's not even 2 months. Yeah, your heart literally doesn't exist at 6 months. So yeah, it doesn't make sense. Now the fetal heartbeat is auditory representation of some electrical pulses. Patients are upset, crying, and desperate. Yeah. Oh no, yeah, we're gonna get into this, but yeah. It's one of these appeals to emotion, these pathos arguments, or like, look at this, this fetus has a heartbeat, and you can't kill something that has a heartbeat, right? Because a heartbeat means that it's alive. Well, even if it does have a heartbeat, it doesn't mean it's alive. But this isn't even a heartbeat, right? Yeah, it's all like trying to tug at your heartstrings, literally heartstrings, and say like, are you going to crush this tiny little baby heart? But the heart doesn't even exist yet, so it's all bad faith appeals to emotion.
The fetus's heartbeat at 6 weeks. Today we saw a patient in Dayton, says a representative of Women's Med, who has cancer. Her doctors told her she would have to terminate before she received chemotherapy treatment. But she can't do that. It's illegal in Ohio. There are many women who are...
It's illegal in Ohio.
20 weeks out.
Oh man, Ohio is pretty, like, in the northeast. That's scary, actually. Yeah, I know it's kind of conservative, but yeah, there's a lot of states that are sliding backwards. It's away from the big population centers, at least. Yeah, so hopefully the big states with the big populations will still have some protections. We'll see.
She will have to travel to Indiana. A mom brought her daughter in and doesn't own a car. She'll have to rent one to get her daughter to her appointment in Indianapolis later this week.
Oh no. Yeah, that's the other thing. It's the daughter is the one that needs an appointment, which means yeah, that's sad. Yeah, think of the children. Yeah, conservatives always talk about like, oh, won't someone think of the children? We have to protect the children. But yeah, when a 10-year-old is pregnant and might die if they are forced to give birth, then there's not protecting their child.
There's going to be women who die because they don't get their chemotherapy in time, because they are pregnant and cannot get chemotherapy.
Yeah, how does that work? If you get chemotherapy while you're pregnant, yeah, that'll cause all sorts of issues, but because your body is already being drained of its resources to make the pregnancy happen, and then you're getting chemotherapy on top of that puts your body under so much stress. I mean, the baby might just die from that. Wait, would that be like a roundabout way of getting an abortion? Like, oh, we didn't mean to kill the baby, but we were doing chemotherapy, and what do you know, the baby just died. Oh well. I mean, even in that case, like, you gotta protect the life of the person who's actually alive instead of the fetus, right? But who knows with these psychos.
Until they end their pregnancy. There are going to be women who die because they have ectopic pregnancy ruptures. There are going to be women who die because they have a miscarriage that doesn't fully evacuate. There are going to be...
Yeah, that's the worst part that, like, doesn't even make sense. The pregnancy is not going to be successful, right? Either, like, your womb just, like, explodes or whatever. I don't know. Man, that's a crude way of putting it, but, like, it's basically true. Like, the egg is stuck inside the fallopian tubes instead of the womb, so like once it grows, it just like ruptures your tubes, like, and then like of course the baby's not gonna form properly because the mother dies. But like there's all sorts of other situations where it's like you're going to have a miscarriage, the baby is not formed properly, maybe there's something wrong with the fetus. Even if it does like grow into a baby, it's going to be like deformed or non-functional, and it's like, why would you even carry a baby to term and give birth to it if it's going to be like a dysfunctional like not even human, or it's human but like not a functional human being, or like it'll be stillborn, it'll be, yeah, that's what I mean, it'll be I mean, yeah, that's, it's weird that, like, they'll force them to do that because, like, all life is valuable. Well, like, is the life valuable even if it's, like, not even going to be alive? That's the part that doesn't really make sense.
Women who die because just maybe suicide, and that they can't care for a child, or they don't know where to turn.
That's the darkest part, really. I mean, these women, like, they're trapped. Like, they're trapped with this baby inside of them. Maybe they're scared of giving birth, because giving birth is a very painful process, very stressful process, and like it's like body horror, or almost. It's like weird, and they might not want to go through that. They might not want to be saddled with a child. They might have like mental issues of other kinds that like predispose them to like self-harm, and so yeah, they might just choose to off themselves instead of having a kid, because women have to put their life on hold to take care of a kid. Maybe they have dreams and aspirations that's keeping them going, dreams like beyond being a mother and raising a child, and like once those dreams come crashing down around them, because that's not a possibility for them, because they have to take care of this child, then, and like carry to term and give birth to it, then like maybe that'll be it for them. And of course, it's not just suicide, it's self-harm, because if you can't get even a black market abortion, you could try to do the abortion yourself in all sorts of ways. You can poison yourself by drinking a lot of alcohol. You can pretend to fall down the stairs. You can starve yourself if you really want to. You can do all sorts of things. And that's why, like, women are going to be prosecuted for miscarrying, which is really messed up. I mean, there already have been cases like this, but there are going to be a lot more now, where it's like a woman miscarries under suspicious circumstances, and of course, who decides what is suspicious circumstances and what is not? So they miscarry, and people suspect that it was an abortion. So, and it's the thing with that is, even if that is true, even if they were so desperate to not be pregnant that they did something so horrible as to drown their fetus in alcohol, like, can't you just respect that? Can't you just accept that? I mean, if they were willing to do that, if they were so desperate, maybe it's the right thing to do to just let them not have a child instead of, I don't know, going after them for that. That's really messed up, vindictive. It's just punishing women for wanting to live their own lives, for wanting to have something beyond, like, raising child and like giving birth and like being a breeding pod. So part of you has to wonder, like, is it really about protecting the life of the fetus, or is it about punishing women? Is it about, like, criminalizing being female? As funny as that sounds, it kind of makes sense if you think about it, because women are more likely to be, like, left-wing. Women are more likely to be anti-authoritarian, fight the power, and all that, because they are the victims of authoritarianism more often than men, because their bodies have to be controlled for reproduction in the eyes of the state. And by criminalizing that, by keeping them down, it's sort of the same as, like, keeping black people down, keeping them impoverished, and not allowing them to get jobs, good jobs, and climb the social economic ladder. Yeah, I mean, they're both, like, oppressed classes. Females are different because they're, like, half the population, but it is sort of similar. And of course, if I imagine, like, causing a miscarriage would be a felony, in which case you're not allowed to vote, which is another thing, like, oh, this is another way to suppress the vote, by taking away the right to vote in the most direct way possible. Just like, hey, you can't vote anymore because you committed this crime or that crime. Yeah, it's just another way of reinforcing this whole power structure that keeps women down in the first place.
The women who die, pregnant women, are at the hands of their partners. Number one murder victims.
I mean,
oh yeah, that's true. What if the guy doesn't want to deal with pregnancy? That's really messed up. It's like, sometimes the guy just leaves, just fucks off, and moves to another state or something. But I mean, does that happen? That might happen, because, like, now, like, it's like a certainty that the child will be born, and someone's gonna have to take care of it. So, I mean, some of these guys are really shitty, terrible guys, and they just use their partners for sex, and they beat them. They don't value them at all anyway. So it's like, oh, I accidentally knocked her up. Time to take her out back, and because I'm done with her now, because they can't get an abortion, so it's like, oh, I can't have sex with her anymore, and that's, like, the main reason that I'm with her, so might as well just, yeah, that's really messed up. So much messed up stuff going on.
They might die after they have the child that they were forced into having because the man saw having a child with this woman as a method of control and keeping her in the relationship, and then she could die from the continued domestic violence.
And again...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course it's all about, controlling women. It's about, like, the man wants to have a child more than the woman does, because, like, it's, the woman who does all the work in the pregnancy, right? Yeah, it's going to be messed up how, like, probably there's going to be a lot of men who rape their spouses, like, without their knowledge, like, by, like, poking holes in condoms or whatever, like, getting them to have children, etc. Yeah.
Exceptions? I mean, it's not hard to imagine that, you're a 14-year-old, victim of incest, and what that would do to you and your mental health. But there are going to be women who die again, with the exception of the life of the mother. Doctors make an assessment, 20% danger, 30%, and the counter incentive is I don't want to go to jail. That's what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, that's where it gets really messy, because it's not like, it's not so simple as, we either abort and save the mother, or we don't abort and the mother dies. There's like, with an ectopic pregnancy or some of these other conditions, it's like a 20-30% chance that the mother will die if the abortion doesn't happen. So it's like, you have to weigh the risks of, like, do I save this woman's life potentially and then risk being prosecuted for that or losing my doctor's license, or do I play it safe and there's a 30% chance that this woman dies during childbirth? Yeah, that's another messed up choice people are gonna have to make. Like, some of these laws are, like, very vague and can be interpreted one way or another. Maybe if there's one judge that is, like, really pro-abortion, that judge will come down on that doctor. The funny thing about that is, like, if doctors lose their licenses for performing abortions, then that just floods the market for black market abortions with doctors that have just lost their licenses and are looking to make some money with the only skill that they have, because it takes a lot of practice and training to become a doctor. So it's like they're not going to go back to school. They have to use their medical knowledge for something, right? Yeah.
We're going to see more and more of that. Here's a good clip on CNN of just, and here's the thing that I think the Democratic leadership does not quite understand. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that is, and Atrios brought this up on his blog at Eschaton. He was talking about, I don't know if I have it here. He was talking about the Terry Schiavo case. I don't know if folks remember this.
That's probably the first big news story and debate that I remember.
It was in, I think, 2005, maybe 6.
Yeah.
And there was a woman who was in a vegetative state. I think it was in Florida. And her husband had multiple discussions with her in the past. They talk about this. I'm never in a vegetative state. I want you to essentially pull the plug on. The parents did not want this.
Oh, I heard about this story. Yeah.
By every law.
This is still at 1.25. Should we?
The husband had the power to make this decision. The Florida courts, I think it was, and it became a huge debate, and I think the hospital wasn't doing it. I can't remember exactly the sequencing of everything. And the Republicans got involved in this. You literally had Bill Frist, who was the Senate Majority Leader at the time.
The politicians
arguing that he thinks that she can come out of it.
Well, there was a whole right-wing propaganda operation that, frankly, took advantage of her parents' grief, and they had that whole documentary that came out showing her eyes moving to certain responses to prove that it's possible that she comes out of it, which wasn't the case.
And the bottom line is, the question was, who had the power or the right to decide what happens to...
Yeah, I don't know the details of this case, but, like, if the lady was brain dead, then, yeah, she's in a vegetative state, which means, yeah, there's no way that she can come back, right? Yeah, so it's just coping, that, like, saying, like, oh, she'll come out of it, she'll be okay. Yeah, it's because it's another thing that's like that Republicans don't understand science or like biology, because it's like, oh, they're alive, as in their heart is beating, they're breathing, so that means that they're alive. Well, no, that does not mean that they're alive. They don't even understand what like being alive even entails, because like, how is a fetus alive in any meaningful sense? Like, it does not possess consciousness. It doesn't even have a nervous system, let alone a brain to possess consciousness. So it's not alive in any meaningful sense. Just like a vegetative, comatose person is not alive. They're brain dead, but their body is still alive. Yeah, it's just like, oh no, she'll come out of it, she'll be fine. No. It's just like holding on to hope, even though like all the facts go against them. Yeah, it's just another way, like, you can just believe whatever you want to believe, right? If you're a conservative, if you're a right-winger, you can just choose to believe whatever you want to believe, and it doesn't matter if you're wrong, because there are no consequences to being wrong. Especially like if you're in your little safe space where nobody ever confronts you about your wrongness.
Terry Schiavo. Again, Congress jumps in, and at the end, as soon as Congress jumps in, I'll read from Idris. Congress steps in, Tom DeLay stepped in, and everyone all over the country could imagine the bug man, Tom DeLay was a former pest control guy, interfering in their lives at the worst and most difficult moments. It's one thing to disapprove of Michael Schiavo, the husband who wanted to essentially pull the plug. Quite another to imagine your medical and end-of-life decisions being hijacked by the freaks in Congress after the normal, which was hardly normal process, had played out. So there was a long, protracted legal process in Florida. Plenty of people disapprove of abortion in general sense, but not as many really want the reality of a post-Roe world. Horror stories will be there daily. We just read you one.
I mean, we've already read several horror stories about like ectopic pregnancies, children being raped by like or women needing chemotherapy. And so the thing about this case, it seems like the parents of this woman like could not accept the death of their child. Like they were still in the denial stage of grief, right? They were like holding on to hope, like, oh, she'll come out of it, and even though like she was dead, she was brain dead, her body was still alive, but she was dead in every meaningful sense. And these politicians were like using them, and they said they made a documentary where they were like showing her eyes moving under their eyelids, which I think is a natural reflex, right? Like, depending on the stimuli that causes it, it could be a natural reflex, and you don't need to be conscious or even have a working brain for that to work. There was a whole thing, it was a Vsauce video actually. There's a whole video about like, what can you do without a brain? Like, is there really such a thing as a no-brainer, as in something you can do literally without a brain? Yeah. It turns out there are quite a few things, like hitting your knee with like the little rubber mallet that doctors use. Your knee just like jerks involuntarily. That's a thing. So yeah, it's like hitting them and like making them jerk their knee and being like, look, they're still alive. They can make it. Come on. Yeah. So these politicians were like using this grieving old couple who like couldn't accept their child's death as like a political statement. That's really gross.
If anyone chooses to report on them, and one political party had better get out in front of it. This is an opportunity for the Democrats to not cower away from this and wait for these stories to get out there and hopefully move. Public opinion is already there.
Oh, yes.
And it's hypothetical. But in the days and weeks and months and years to come, we're going to hear story after story of women dying because of this.